Meditations on the Tarot, a journey into Christian Hermeticism, written anonymously and attributed to Estonian-Russian mystic Valentin Tomberg, explores the 22 trump cards of the Tarot de Marseille. It should be noted that it was Tomberg's intention that the work be published anonymously in order for it to speak for itself. The book falls within the realm of esoteric Christianity and, as such, is a highly regarded offering. In this video, we will be looking at very small extracts from each chapter pertaining to the cards numbered 1 through 7 of the Major Arcana, not as a review in the strictest sense, but more so for us to reflect and contemplate. I hope that this presentation will be beneficial to your practice.
To understand the world, you must first know yourself. But how do we discern what is real? Embark on this journey to discover more about your real potential. Uncover the mystery in the tarot.
Among some of the many syncretic influences that perhaps contributed to Tomberg's evaluation of the trumps were Martinism, Theosophy, and Catholicism. He viewed each tarot card as an arcanum, something that you need to know wholeheartedly to be enriched by. He considered each card as a ferment, or enzyme that awakens and energizes the inner life. We begin with the first card, the Magician, one of the most iconic cards in the Major Arcana, and in modern times it is often seen as a symbol of potential, energy, and the power to manifest your desires. It represents the meeting point between the spiritual and physical worlds, the idea that what exists above can be made real below. The implements on the Magician's table typically symbolize the externalization of elemental forces of both the inner and outer worlds, which the Magician exerts mastery over. Here now is an extract from Meditations on the Tarot, a Hermetic Christian perspective.
All practical esotericism is founded on the following rule. It is necessary to be one in one's self, concentration without effort, and one with the spiritual world, to have a zone of silence in the soul, in order for a revelatory or actual spiritual experience to be able to take place. In other words, if one wants to practice some form of authentic esotericism, be it mysticism, gnosis, or magic, it is necessary to be the magician, i.e., concentrated without effort, operating with ease as if one were playing, and acting with perfect calm. This, then, is the practical teaching of the first arcanum of the tarot. It is the first counsel, commandment, or warning concerning all spiritual practice. It is the aleph of the alphabet of practical rules of esotericism.
We now move to card number 2, the High Priestess. Today, she is seen as the guardian of mystery, intuition, and inner wisdom. In the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, she sits calmly between two pillars, one black, one white, symbolizing balance and duality. Behind her is a veil marked with symbols of sacred knowledge hiding deeper truths from plain sight. She holds a scroll labeled Torah, a symbol of divine law and hidden memory, and wears the crown of the moon, connecting her to the goddess, the subconscious, and the divine sacred feminine. She invites us inward to listen, reflect, and trust our inner voice. Here now is an extract from Meditations on the Tarot, a Hermetic Christian perspective.
Letter 2, the High Priestess. The pure act in itself cannot be grasped. It is only its reflection which renders it perceptible, comparable, and understandable. Or, in other words, it is by virtue of the reflection that we become conscious of it. The reflection of the pure act produces an inner representation which becomes retained by the memory. Memory becomes the source of communication by means of the spoken word, and the communicated word becomes fixed by means of writing, by producing the book. The second arcanum, the High Priestess, is that of the reflection of the pure act of the first arcanum, up to the point where it becomes book. It shows us how fire and wind become science and book, or in other words, how wisdom builds her house.
Each mode of experience and knowledge, when pushed to its limit, becomes a sense or engenders a special sense. He who dares to aspire to the experience of the unique essence of being will develop the mystical sense or spiritual touch. If he wants not only to live, but also to learn to understand what he lives through, he will develop the Gnostic sense. And if he wants to put into practice what he has understood from mystical experience, he will develop the magical sense. If lastly, he wants all that he has experienced, understood, and practiced to not be limited to himself and his time, but to become communicable to others and to be transmitted to future generations, he must develop the Hermetic philosophical sense, and in practicing it, he will write his book.
Now let's look at card 3, the Empress. She's the embodiment of nurturing, creativity, and abundance. Seated in a garden full of life, she represents the earth itself, lush, fertile, and generous. She's the Great Mother, a symbol of beauty, love, and the sustaining power of nature. Historically, she evolved from a figure of regal authority into a divine feminine archetype. In the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, her presence reminds us of the richness of life and the importance of care, connection, and growth, telling us to trust in the process of creation, to nurture what we love, and to recognize that we are also a source of life and inspiration. Here now is an extract from Meditations on the Tarot.
Letter 3, the Empress. Love, hope, and faith are at one and the same time the essence of mysticism, gnosis, and sacred magic. Faith is the source of magic power, and all the miracles spoken of in the Gospels are attributed to it. All the revelations of gnosis have only one aim: to give, to maintain, and to increase hope. The book that the High Priestess holds on her knees is written so that hope may continue unceasingly, for all revelation which does not give hope is useless and superfluous. Mysticism is fire without reflection. It is union with the divine in love. It is the primary source of all life, including religious, artistic, and intellectual life. Without it, everything becomes pure and simple technique. Religion becomes a body of techniques of which the scribes and Pharisees are the engineers. It becomes legalistic. Art becomes a body of techniques, be they traditional or innovative, a field of imitation or experiences. Lastly, science becomes a body of techniques of power over nature. But the arcanum of sacred magic, the Empress, calls us to take another way. It calls us to the way of regeneration instead of that of degeneration. It invites us to demechanize all that which has become solely intellectual, aesthetic, and moral technique. One has to demechanize in order to become a mage.
Now, moving on to card 4, the Emperor, who is the archetype of authority, structure, and divine order. Seated firmly on a stone throne, he radiates discipline, leadership, and unwavering stability. His armor speaks to protection and preparedness, while the ram heads on his throne are a nod to Aries. He is bold, assertive, and driven. Whether it's guidance from a father figure or a call to step into your own authority, this card in the modern sense invites you to build, protect, and lead with clarity and strength. Here now is an extract from Meditations on the Tarot.
Letter 4, the Emperor. Dear unknown friend, the less superficial a person is, and the more he knows and is capable of, the greater is his authority. To be something, to know something, and to be capable of something is what endows a person with authority. One can also say that a person has authority in proportion to what he unites within himself of the profundity of mysticism, the direct wisdom of gnosis, and the productive power of magic. Whosoever has this to a certain degree can found a school. Whosoever has this to a still higher degree can lay down the law. It is authority alone which is the true and unique power of law. Compulsion is only an expedient to which one takes recourse in order to remedy a lack of authority. Where there is authority, i.e., where there is present the breath of sacred magic filled by the rays of light of gnosis emanated from the profound fire of mysticism, there compulsion is superfluous.
Proceeding now to card number 5, the Hierophant, who is the spiritual teacher, the keeper of sacred traditions and moral structure. He represents righteousness, order, and the sacred wisdom passed down through generations. He stands for systems of faith, belief, and learning, a symbol of orthodoxy. Sometimes he is the mentor or guide. At other times, he invites us to question the traditions that we follow. In modern interpretation, he can signal spiritual initiation, formal learning, or wise counsel. Here now is an extract from Meditations on the Tarot, a Hermetic Christian perspective.
Letter 5. The Pope. Dear unknown friend, the card, the Pope, puts us in the presence of the act of benediction. It is essential to have this in mind when one undertakes the interpretation not only of the structure of the whole card, but also of each of its particular elements. One should therefore never lose from sight that, in the first place, it is a matter of benediction and everything associated with it. No matter who the Pope may be or who the acolytes kneeling before him are, and no matter what the two columns behind the Pope signify, and no matter what his tiara and the triple cross he is holding symbolize, what is benediction? What is the source and its effect? Who has the authority to bestow benediction? What role does it play in the spiritual life of humanity? Now, benediction is more than a simple good wish made for others. It is also more than a magical impress of personal thought and will upon others. It is the putting into action of divine power, transcending the individual thought and will of the one who is blessed, as well as the one who is pronouncing the blessing. In other words, it is an essentially sacerdotal act.
Moving to card number 6, the Lovers, which sometimes has romantic connotations associated with it. However, this card is more than just a card about romance. It can refer to monumental decision-making, or to temptation between vice and virtue. Yes, it often symbolizes deep relationships, but it also symbolizes crossroads, moments when your heart and your higher self are calling you towards something more meaningful. In some readings, it can be seen as a powerful decision that must be made from a place of truth. Here now is an extract from Meditations on the Tarot, a Hermetic Christian perspective.
Letter 6. The Lover. It is a matter, therefore, of accepting the ideal of the Superman, who is the summit of evolution, and who, having passed through the mineral, plant, animal, and human kingdoms, subjecting them to his power, is Lord over them. That is, he is the final cause or aim and ideal, their representative or their collective concentrated will, and he is their master who has taken their subsequent evolution into his hands. Now, the choice here is between the ideal of the Superman, who is as God, and God himself. Holy obedience is therefore faithfulness to the living God himself. Revolt or disobedience is the decision taken in favor of the Superman, who personifies the will to power.
The next card in this series is card number 7, the Chariot, which is the card of willpower, direction, and momentum. It speaks to focused intention and the ability to move forward even when things pull you in opposite directions. In many decks, the charioteer rides a vehicle pulled by two creatures, often one black, one white, representing dual forces. Success comes not from brute strength, but from balancing these forces and staying centered on the middle path, not polarizing yourself to either extreme. By today's standards, you could say that this card is about discipline and holding the reins. Here now is an extract from Meditations on the Tarot, a Hermetic Christian perspective.
Letter 7. The Chariot. Dear unknown friend, like the preceding arcana, the arcanum, the Chariot, has a twofold aspect. It represents from one side he who, having triumphed over the three temptations, remains faithful to the vows of obedience, poverty, and chastity, and it represents from another side the danger of the fourth temptation, which is the most subtle and intimate temptation, and is the invisible synthesis of the three temptations, the spiritual temptation of the victorious through his victory itself. It is the temptation to act in one's own name, to act as master instead of as servant. The seventh arcanum is that of mastership, understood in the sense of temptation as well as achievement.
So, that's it for the 7 cards. To conclude, I just want to paraphrase from the author. The cards aren't just allegories or secret codes. They're real symbols that both hide and reveal their meaning to you as you meditate on them. Their imagery becomes a starting point for exploring Christian spiritual life and growth. Even though many tarot readers in the current era would probably not identify as Christian, I think understanding this other perspective can still offer a valuable insight. I'm Wayne from Rodney Illustrations, creator of the Global Fusion Intuitive Tarot, published by US Games Systems. I hope that you've enjoyed this comparative reflection on these 7 cards. Best wishes for peace and prosperity. A bientôt.
To understand the world, you must first know yourself. But how do we discern what is real? Embark on this journey to discover more about your real potential. Uncover the mystery in the tarot.